One for you, Sean, is coming up. You ready? He used the right bait for the right critter. So, whereas I immediately said, no, I'm not interested in going to church, this gentleman found a way to get around my objection. And here's how he did it. He says, but Aaron, there's good looking girls there. And so suddenly I was interested. And so, like, okay, I'll go to church. I'll check out the chicks. I'll go to see that. And so this guy, his name was Randy. He would leave one part of the city, drive across the city. He would pick me up to take me back to another city. And he was my transportation. And so I arrive at this Baptist church, land there as a total stranger. And these guys were so smart, so caring and loving. When I showed up that very first day, they had an after church softball game, and they did the smartest thing they could have ever done. They put me at the shortstop position. They make sure that I am in the mix, in the action all the time, right? They made sure I was involved. And if it wasn't shortstop, then it was first base. Dude, they made sure that they had me involved in this discipleship. So it took about 6 weeks before I had any kind of foundation to understand the sin nature and my need for Christ and the love of God and the salvation of Jesus. And so one night at a youth rally, I felt the Holy Spirit moving on my heart. And if you've ever been there, then you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. My fingers were gripping the back of the pew and my knuckles were white from the pressure. Right. And so I got up, I started walking down the aisle, glanced over at my pastor, and he just kind of shook his head. And I walked down to the front, and here's what happened. I walk up to the altar worker and I go, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I have no idea how to pray. I don't even know what to say. And you know what? This guy could have said, listen, I'm going to lead you through a sinner's prayer, but he didn't do that. Instead, he said, you're going to have to find the words, get on your knees and ask God to forgive you. And so unassisted, I had to get down and I had to search my own life, my own heart, my own soul, and I had to ask God to forgive me for everything that I had ever done, right? And prior to this, I had found my identity in using profanity left and right. It was a way that I had differentiated myself. I am one of 7 kids. I'm right in the middle. There's 3 older and 3 younger. And somehow, some way, in the way that the world thinks, when you're searching for an identity, I was searching for my place in the world. And so I would use profanity to a greater extent than any of my siblings. And I was the middle child who I felt like had at least a niche. And I wasn't thinking that way, you understand. But when I gave my heart to Christ that night, I went down one man and I came up another. And profanity was removed from my life like that in an instant. And it is the saving manifestation of a spirit's work in a physical body to change the nature of a person in an instant.
Well, that's awesome, and I know that's definitely know that's true from my own personal experience, and just want to say wow on that. And so it's 2 things that I know about you, Aaron. I know you're a marketer, and the second thing, you work out as well, don't you? You work out, so you're a bodybuilder or personal fitness. You're actually in the arena. What'd you say?
I go to the weight room, so I wouldn't call myself a bodybuilder. I'm just trying to keep this thing from falling apart, man.
Okay. Because I did see some pictures, and I was like, Whoa! I didn't know who you were for a second, because for a long time we were just chatting, just direct messaging and through posts and things like that. And so one day I saw someone say you were a marketer. I was like, Aaron's a marketer? And so I went to your webpage, and I was trying to figure out, okay, who's there?
Yeah.
Because you had a lot of people there, and I was like, okay, so who's Aaron? So I started going through the pictures, and then I saw one picture. It was like you and a bunch of other dudes, and y'all were all kind of ripped,
Yeah.
right? Do you know what picture I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's a group picture of Iron Tribe Fitness in the early days of it. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And so then the second thing I know about you is that you're into marketing. How did you get into marketing?
All right, so here's the long origin story. All right, it back in 2001, a partner and I decided to open a fitness facility because. Well, let me back up just a little more, Sean. I spent 4.5 years in a physical therapy clinic working on patients, right? As an individual who was, I'm not a physical therapist. I am what they call a neuromuscular therapist. And there's a whole backstory to that I won't take the time to share. But let's just say that there are many good men in this world who invested in me unjustly because they saw something in me that they thought was trainable, moldable. And a shout out to Ron Pate. If you ever see this dude, I love you and I appreciate you to this day. And anyway, so from there, that fitness, that business wasn't going to make it, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall. This gentleman came to work with us. His name was Forrest Walden, who is now the CEO of Iron Tribe Fitness, right? But prior to that, we were in a position where we just realized that the therapy clinic wasn't going to survive, and we needed to do something. And so my friend Forrest began to investigate franchises, and we discovered a franchise out of Denver called Fitness Together, right? So Fitness Together then at that time was private personal training. You have a studio with 2 or 4 different rooms, one client, one trainer, one room of equipment. And so you could have 3 or 4 trainers and 3 or 4 clients at a given time. So with that background said, we opened our first location. I already had a personal training clientele. My friend Forrest already had a personal training clientele. We merged those 2 clienteles to open our first studio, and we opened it with a $30,000 opening month. All right, now this is where the story takes off, okay? That first $30,000 opening month was a franchise record. Of the 45, 47 franchises in system at that time, we opened with the largest month, right? So we had aggressive growth plans to open a new location every 6 months, right? So we opened our first location. 6 months later, we opened our second location. In the middle of that, September 9/11 hit, right?
Wow.
Right. And so the towers came down, and we thought the whole world was going to end, right? And we thought that our business was done before it got started. But because we had already signed the lease on the second location, we were obligated to go ahead and launch that second location. And when we did, it opened with a $20,000 opening month. So stay with me. A $30,000 in the first one, a $20,000 in the second one with no clients, right? And then 6 months later, we opened our third location, and it opened with a $4,500 month. 30, 20, 4,500, right? And so that was quite a disconcerting opening in comparison to the other 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward 5 months, and this thing is still not clicking, and it's in a very well-to-do city, but it's just not catching fire like the other two did. And so 5 months into it, we're around 17,000, 17,500 or so per month, but it wasn't enough to even cover the expenses. And
Mm.
so it started to pull the revenue from the other two to help support
Mm.
that flow. So we became a bit on the desperate side, and my partner, Forrest, ends up finding a display ad in a fitness magazine, fitness industry magazine, and that personal trainers would ascribe to. Right? It's not a typical fitness magazine you'd find at the superstore. It's like an industry-specific magazine. And so he finds that display ad. It's ugly. It's black and white. It's not pretty. It's all text.
Mm.
And it just promised that this fitness marketing system could bring you new clients. So when my partner comes to me to tell me that he just spent $350 on this junk, in my mind, I was like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, come on, man. We're trying to make this thing float, and you're buying junk mail, right?
Mm.
And but little did I know, Sean, that was going to be the most profitable $350 I've ever seen spent. Right. So he gets this information. He hands it to me. I read it. We end up contacting the marketer that put all this together, and his name is Eric Ruth. And Eric Ruth went on to become one of the fitness industry's top copywriting, marketing specialists. And Eric, literally, when you hear people say that changed my life, this literally changed my life, right?
Mm.
And so we hired Eric to write us 3 letters, 3 physical letters that we would put in the mail and mail out to the community. This is about 2003, late 2002, early 2003. And so here was the headline that went on this first letter. I have $167 worth of free gifts to prove to you that I can put the icing on your cake.
Mm.
And I looked at it and I was like, that's horrible. It's totally ridiculous. Moreover, he wanted me to hold a plate with a cake on it, and a butter knife in my hand, and stand there proudly with a picture and put this on my letter. And I'm like, dude, I have just spent the last 4.5 years in a physical therapy clinic. I have just opened 2 fitness facilities, and I have worked really hard for my reputation. And you think for a moment that I am going to put my face on a picture? I mean, on a letter with a picture holding a cake and a butter knife? That ain't happening. The answer is a hard no, right? So, lo and behold, the desperation begins to set in with this thing not kicking off. And so instead of putting my picture on it, I decided, okay, look, we'll mail out the letter just to satisfy you. We'll mail it out. And so we did. And we sent out about 700 letters. Cost us, the postage and the printing somewhere near $400, right? And suddenly, to my shock, the phone started ringing.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, interesting. And the phone rang, and the phone rang, and the phone rang, and the phone rang, right? About that time, the second letter hit, and the phone rang, and the phone rang, and the phone rang. And then the third letter hit, and the phone rang,
Mm.
and the phone rang, and the phone rang. And I'm going, what the heck is going on right now? I'll tell you what was going on. We went from a $17,000 month to a $47,000 month
Wow.
in 30 days.
In 30
And
days.
what is happening? Right? So then we took those same letters and we moved it back over to the second location that opened with a $20,000 open month, and it was doing well. It was probably in the $35,000 month range at that time. And we mailed it out, and in a month we went from $35,000 to 86,000 in 30 days. Right.
Uh, I
And
can't add that well, so that's like a 300%.
it was ridiculous. And so we're going, okay, what in the heck is going on right now? And so by that time, we had opened our fourth location. And it was opening in the month of December. And we decided, we're going to try these letters as a launch piece going into the community. And we did. And in the month of December 2003, that facility opened with a $103,000 opening month. And I'm like, what is going on? There's clearly something I don't know.
Wow.
But I am going to know it. That was the beginning of the end for me in terms of being a personal trainer. Because instantly I was enthralled. I was completely and totally consumed with what I didn't know. And I was determined to figure it out. So about another year and a half or so into that, I sold out my partnership to Forrest, and I went into full-time. I dove full steam into this whole copywriting, marketing discipline. I wanted to know what made people tick. I wanted to know the psychology. I wanted to understand how headlines work. I wanted to know what body copy was. I wanted to know how offers worked. I wanted to know what it took to get people to get up off their couch and spend large sums of money to work out. Right? And so that began my deep dive. I started searching everybody. You can see this book's behind me, and what you can't see over off to the one side, and what you can't see off onto the other side is, and what you can't see in my closets right there, is this commitment to learning this craft so that anyone who needs to get clients, well, now we know how to do it, and we know how to bring about a result for an individual. And of course, much of that has changed over time. We mailed out letters to begin with, and nowadays, Facebook didn't even exist back in those days, at least to no discernible extent like it is today. And so that's how I got in to marketing.
That's pretty crazy. That sounds like one of those stories you watch in a movie.
Right.
You go from low to high, thinking you're about to lose everything, to gaining, right, to just having unbelievable success.
Yeah.
And how many years would you say that you spent going through marketing and learning? Like, how many years did it take you to kind of just to learn what you set out to learn?
18 years.
Okay. And counting.
And I understand the spirit of your question, and I will answer it. It took me probably a good 5 years to really have a real solid foundation. Now I say that, but I had some good mentorships. But today, what I do is so readily and easily located and found, and people ready to help. Back in those early days where I was at, this didn't exist. Right. And so it's much more of a slow burn in terms of that. And but here's the good news. I'm not all that bright, dude. I mean, I study hard, and here's what it means. If I can do this, dude, anybody can do it. Right?
Well, that's good news.
Yeah. So it's a teachable skill. Now, I will say this. If you're not the kind, if your personality type isn't the one who likes to read, don't even go. Don't go there. Right? Because there's no such thing as a good writer without being a good reader.
Right.
If you love reading, though, dude, all it takes is learning the craft. Right.
So, I mean, you just said the key word, the craft. So if you had to explain this to a kindergartner or a first grader, what would you say that marketing was? What is marketing?
Marketing. Well, we need to distinguish marketing from advertising. Okay. Okay. And so marketing is just getting your message out as organically and as cost effectively as humanly possible, right? That can be blog posts, books that you write, speaking of anything that's not got a price tag necessarily associated with it. Right. So it could be your Facebook lives. It could be a Facebook post. It could be, emails. Right. That where you're trying to round up help. Advertising, on the other hand, is a bit of a different animal in that you're looking to spend money to get a result, right? And so then when it comes to advertising, there's basically two kinds of advertising, right? There's branding style advertising, and then there's direct response style advertising, right? And branding style advertising is much more of a soft feel, right? It's trying to, you'll spend a lot of money and not really know if you're getting a result for the ad spend. Take, for example, a Coca-Cola commercial, right? Coca-Cola will spend umpteen millions of dollars annually, but we won't know if that commercial works necessarily, right? But a direct response marketer has this thing dialed down to the science of the math, right? They'll have their pages uh, tracked. They'll have their messages tracked. Even if it's a direct mail piece in the mail, they'll have some kind of tracking code inside so that if you go to a website or a landing page and you type in the code, now we know where it came from, right? And so it's really boiled down to the science of direct response versus the branding style where you're throwing money out into the wind and trying to brand your name. Coca-Cola can afford to do that. Apple can afford to do that, right? You and I, we can't afford to do that, right?
Yeah.
We have to know that for every dollar we spend, we want to get 2, 3, or more back, right?
So would you say that advertising is a tool of marketers, but it's not necessarily marketing, but it can be used as a tool?
Yeah, sure. Um, and they're not mutually exclusive. All right, let me just make that clear. Okay. Anything that you do that works effectively in terms of communication is good marketing, right?
Mm.
And so all these books behind me, I mean, I'm going to teach you something about authors and books now that is going to probably change your perception on it from now on. Okay. But if you take a book, any book, right? Like this right here. Here's a chiropractic book. Right? This is an advertisement. That's what this is. Right?
Mm.
This whole book
Mm.
is about getting into a franchise, right? And that's what all these things are. Right? This is the new business card.
Mm.
Okay, and so this is why marketers tell you to write a book, right? Because if you write a book, then you're seen as a bit of a professional. You're the go-to guy. You're the expert on the topic. After all, you've written a book on it, right? And so many of the books that we carry on our bookshelves are calling cards in the terms of marketing to get clients.
Can I just stop you there? Because for the viewers, for those who watch this interview, Aaron just dropped a bomb. He just dropped a bomb. Write a book. Write a book. That was a practical step that he just threw out there, and there you can continue and continue to expound on that.
Sure. Well, writing a book is, it's got to be what it is, right? It's got to be valuable. Every chapter's got to bring something worth paying for. And so your best advice has got to go in that book. try to hold nothing back, give everything you've got, develop goodwill, and people will appreciate you for it, right? And so the thing that readers hate is material that's boring, non-applicable, non-actionable, and is filler, right? Nobody wants filler,
Definitely.
right? They want something that is going to make a difference in their life, right? Now, that said, I'm going to tell you something that is totally fascinating, quirky, weird, bizarre about the human nature. You ready? I have a problem, and that problem is money. Okay. And I'm just sick and tired of having money problems.
Hmm.
Dadgummit, I am going to solve this problem once and for all. So what do? I jump on Amazon, or I jump in my car and I go down to the bookstore and I walk to the aisles of Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, whatever your local bookstore is. And I'm looking around and I go to the finance section, business section, and I find the perfect book, Finance for Dummies, right? And so I'm like, dude, this is exactly what I need. I pick it up, I triumphantly walk up and I pay for it, and I own my answer. After all, I just paid for it. The answer now belongs to me. So I go home and I pull into my driveway. I get out of my car. I go in, I brew myself a cup of coffee, tea, glass of water, or whatever. And I sit down and I pull out my book and I start to flip it open, and my phone beeps, right? Rings, text, something. Kids run around. The dog chases the cat and spills over the milk, whatever. And so suddenly, this answer that I own in my hand gets set aside. But it's there. I can access it anytime that I want it. And therefore, when I really have to have it, when I get that emotional high again, I can go back and reference it. And a year later, it's collected about that much dust, right? And so the problem with human nature is that once we've made a purchase, it sedates its desire to solve it.
Hmm. You
So
need to expound on that one. It once we've made a purchase, the purchase takes away our desire to solve our problem.
oftentimes is what happens. How many things do you own you bought with intent to action to become actionable that is sitting around not acted on? You got too busy.
A lot, especially books. Seems like books do that really, really well because I guess it seems like you think that the solution is the book
That's right.
when the book is not the solution.
That's exactly.
It's it's information that may be contained in the book that you need to act on that
Yeah,
needs to be actionable.
that's right. And because somewhere in the back of your mind you own the answer, at any time and point you can go and get it. It just sits there unused, right?
Mm.
Life just gets in the way. Now I'm going to segue and make that spiritual. You ready?
Go ahead.
You have a whole Bible.
Hmm.
How often?
That's right.
How often does it get read? Right.
That quite often, but it could be read even more.
Right. Right. And so I have a friend of mine who told me one time, I'll never forget this. He was in ministry. He said, this generation will be held more accountable than any other in the
Mm.
history of up to this time in humanity, because we have the Bible in every form possible, imaginable. Apps, right? Books,
Mm.
yeah, videos. Yeah, we have the technology to access it at any time, 24 hours a day.
Mm.
And it sits there unread, and that human nature of I own my spiritual problem between two covers
Hmm.
sits there and gets unused, right?
Okay.
So it's just a call to arms, call to action. That's a marketing term, call to action, to make sure that you do what you can to you know make the Word of God actionable in your life. Yeah.
Right. And that's we're talking about faith and marketing, and you just tied both of those together.
Yeah.
Uh, what is it that what do you think is the explanation of that? That explains that human nature. What is it about? Do we really want to solve the problem, or do we want to feel as though we have a solution and not even like solve the problem with the solution? Do we just want the solution and not want the solution to solve the problem?
All right, Sean, you want to go down the rabbit hole? First of all, the rabbit hole begins with "You're the philosopher, brother."
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
uh, so,
Yeah.
but look, here's my take. My take is pretty simple, right? As simple as I can make it. It's that you know we live in a very stimulus-rich society.
Mm.
The average person, based on some research past, it depends on which research you access, but just imagine between 3 and 10,000 new advertisements hit the average person per day.
You're going somewhere.
All right.
Hmm.
And so if you have 3 to 10,000 advertisements hit you per day, how much can your brain take before you're just like, you just need to shut the whole thing down, right? It's mentally,
Wow.
physiologically, neurologically demanding,
Mm.
and it wears a person out, right?
Mm.
So, um,
Makes us less attentive,
yeah,
makes us shut out information,
that's right.
which is kind of anti-intellectual.
It's absolutely anti-intellectual,
Wow.
but it is
That's
survival,
interesting.
right? It just hits on that survival mechanism, though, yeah. And so this is why I have a lot of beautiful books in my library that really mean a lot to me. And one of those is called "You Are What You Love" by James K. A. Smith. Right.
Hmm.
This is one of those books that, like I said, every page, every chapter, every page has something meaningful to say in it. Right. But its crux is this: you have to curate your love. Okay. Like a museum curator, you have to curate what you're going to intentionally love,
Hmm.
because the
Hmm.
world's working against that curation,
Hmm.
right? It's all about more, faster, in your face, everything that marketers do. Hey, it's a challenge that I have when I'm trying to help a client obtain new customers. I'm one of those 3 to 10,000 trying to get your attention,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
it's liable to get worse, right? As it moves on, and as personalization of this stuff becomes more and more sophisticated. I mean, Sean, you will one day, and it won't be too far from now, you'll go over to Amazon, and a live voice is going to say, "Sean, how can I help you today?"
Hmm.
Going to know who you are. It's going to call you by name. It's going to tell you, Sean, this is a beautiful recommendation for you,
Pretty
and
creepy.
but dude, it's coming at light speed, okay? And
Yeah.
don't think it's not. So, but all that just to say, back to the point of why we're not the more in the word is there's Netflix, there's Amazon, there's Apple, there's everything out there streaming services wise, right? That by the time you are at the end of your day, you're just mentally done, and all you want to do is veg.
Whew. I'm starting to feel something here. I just made a connection.
Yeah.
So based off of what you're saying, you know, today's episode of Faith and Marketing is there. Like, who would have known that there was such a strong connection between faith and marketing? Like, because what you're just saying is that a problem that you have in marketing is that there are so many different companies and organizations and people who are competing for one's focus and attention.
Yeah.
And on the faith side, there are so many things in the world that competes for our devotion.
Yes.
And
Beautiful.
it's the same type of thing. And some people do become stressed out. Some people do become wearied by it's so much things like with truth. Like I hear these atheists saying that God doesn't exist for these reasons, and they're saying that evolution gets rid of that, and some people just shut down. Like I don't know what to believe anymore. Right. I'm just not going to even like think about that or try to find an answer to this most important question, which is about when we leave this world.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, look, I mean, back to the "You Are What You Love" book, right? Let that sink in for a moment, and you'll realize that that's at the core of the identity of a human. Okay. If the premise holds that you are what you love, then take a look at what you view. Take a look at what you read. Take a look at where your time is spent. Take a look at where your money goes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at, your language. Take a look at how you influence, right? You are what you love will come out. Why? Because out of the abundance of the heart speaks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I have this ongoing dialogue, if that's the right word. It's more of a argument than anything else with the Christian world, that they insist that profanity is just a word and that there's nothing to it, and that then they start pulling up all these scientific things saying, yeah, we knew it. Profanity makes you smarter. The smarter people use profanity. It makes you happier, blah, blah, blah. And so one day when I saw that on Facebook, I just couldn't take it anymore, Sean. I couldn't take it. So I took a good solid half day out of my work day to rebut that whole thing.
Oh, that's hilarious. It sounds like something. I'm laughing because that sounds like something that I would do. Definitely. But I would say this. So I see the connection being that it's a piece about focus and what can capture your attention.
Yep.
And that is just so deep because I see it just applies to different areas of life. It applies to goal setting. Like if you set a goal and something distracts you, right, from working out your plan, then it may prevent you from being successful. And a lot of the successful people are those who have been able to focus even when like life was just horrible for them. Like your situation. How many people would have given up when you're going from 30 to 20 to $5,000 opening? How many people would have said, let me just sell as soon as possible to avoid as much loss as we can. We don't want to get any further debt. But it takes a special type of person to focus on where they want to be. Like you're not focused. Your focus wasn't on your problems.
Yeah.
Right. You had something else in mind.
Well, we had a mentor, right? We had somebody come along and take us by the hand and show us a better way.
Ding, right? Ding, 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 ding. Write that down. A mentor. Someone to take you by the hand and show you a better way. Wow. So write a book, get a mentor, and then which brings us to the question of how do you solve that problem when there's so many people competing for the same person's focus as you are?
Yeah. So, as a marketer, there are a number of ways, but for me, it all boils back down to the human nature, the human need. The human needs something. And what the human needs on top of, I mean, you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At the very base, we've got those very basic things, right? We've got the need for survival. We got the need for food. We got the need for sex. We got the need for the basics of just being alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but then from there you begin to grow as a human. So once your basic needs are met, then you can begin to move up more toward what he calls self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
In our world, we would call it spiritual growth in Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm.
it's a so how do you interrupt someone's world, right? Gary Halbert, a classic, a beautiful copywriter from times past, who is now passed on, said it as succinctly and as well as I've ever heard it said, and it's a writer downer. It says, "You enter the conversation going on in the prospect's head," right?
Mm.
So,
You enter the conversation
yeah, going on
going on
in the
in the
prospect.
prospect's head. So if you're watching this, if you have a business, if you have some goal, some hobby, something you're trying to get more attention to, bring more traffic to, you need to enter into the conversation that is going on in your prospect's head. And your prospect is who, Aaron?
It's whomever you're trying to reach, right?
Okay.
If you're a personal trainer, you're trying to get another personal training client. Right? If you're a dentist, you're trying to get people to come get their teeth cleaned. Right? And if you're a marketer trying to find new business, then it's reaching out to business owners. It's so whoever your prospect is you need to be able to speak their language. And here's a critical point that needs to be made at this point, and that is the great mistake that most people do when they try to market, right? Is they try to say what they know. They try to say what they want to say versus what the prospect needs to hear to give you their attention, right? So,
Mhm.
so for example, I'm a past personal trainer in the world. And if I were to tell you, Sean, that, look, dude, I know what's wrong with you. You have a type iliopsoas, and it's screwing with your quadratus lumborum, and therefore your multifidi is depressed. I mean, you know, it's
I,
great
I,
for you,
I
right?
didn't get it either. I got Sean. I
Right.
got that much.
But if I say, Sean, look, you tell me your low back's hurting. Here's what you probably don't know. There's some muscles on the front of your hip that are tight and they're kind of pulling your pelvis forward, and it's making your low back.
Hmm. Hmm. Whew. This is so good, Aaron, because we're talking about faith and marketing again. And like the value for a believer. Like you're talking about evangelism.
Right? Which
That's
brings
how evangelism looks in one like you said earlier, they knew how to what type of bait to put on the hook.
that's right.
And now you're talking about marketing, and it's the same skill set.
It is.
It's the same skill set. You have to speak the person's language, put it in the way that they understand. You know what? I have a background in education and teaching. And there are brilliant teachers who have horrible results with students because they can't do what you're saying. Like they can understand the material, but they don't know how to put it in a way where their students can grasp it.
Right. And
It's
this
this. It's the same thing.
This is what we call the curse of knowledge in marketing. Okay. And the curse of knowledge is you say what you want to say versus what your prospect needs to hear from you. Okay. Just because I happen to know what an iliopsoas is and a quadratus lumborum and multifida and tissue fasciolata and all that doesn't mean that anyone in my reach gives a rip. Right? They care that they are hurting. They care that they are overweight, or that they're underweight, or that they have an eating problem, or they've just been divorced and now they want a revenge body, right? And so,
wow,
you if you're going to be an effective communicator, Sean, you have to resonate with your prospect, right? Which brings up the primary number one way marketing works. The primary number one way Christ infiltrated the lives of men and turned the world upside down. Okay. He, in the case of the Almighty Christ, right? He turns to his disciples and he goes, "Throw your net on the other side of the boat."
That's good.
Right. And when they got a result after following his advice, what's Peter do? He falls at his feet and says, "Get away from me. I am not worthy." Right.
That's right.
And so we are none of us worthy. Right. And
he spoke their language.
Spoke their language. He spoke about
Peter knew fishing.
Yeah. And so what did he say? He says, "I'll make you a fisher of men." Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. He spoke his, oh man, mind blown. Aaron, you're gonna have to give me the pieces of my mind that have spilled all over you.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. That's good. He spoke his like I've never thought about that like that. I've never seen that from that perspective. Yeah. As look, I'm gonna make you feel. I've often wondered why Jesus said that, right? Like, what's the significance of it? And I understood it, but to Peter, it would have been to a fisherman.
Sure.
It would have had such a resonance that it doesn't even have with me, because I've seen fishermen, but I don't enjoy, like, that's not my thing, right? So wow, that's really good.
Well, we don't have a record of it. I wouldn't doubt it for a moment that when he walked up to Matthew, the tax collector, he says, "Come and I'll show you how to collect men."
Yeah. Or you old guy to debt.
Right.
That you can't pay.
Right.
Woo!
Yeah.
Come on now.
If you don't emotionally resonate, you gain no ground. Okay. And so
that's good.
Resonance is everything in marketing. And so you can't touch everybody with a general message. I mean, for example, if you're a guitar player, and I talk to you about strumming some chords or whatever, then suddenly I have your attention. But if you don't play an instrument, that message doesn't resonate on any level, right? And so it's going to be you have to be careful how you choose your marketing audience, right? So your energies are spent toward a specific audience, and you try to speak their language. So,
okay, so you said, and the time is wrapping up, and I don't, want to hold you past the time, but I would love for you to come back and do a part 2 if you're available, and a part 3 and 4 and 5. No, I'm just. But you have a lot of knowledge to to share, and I just had a feeling that as soon as we enter into this conversation, that there were going to be so many tidbits, and you've given a lot of nuggets. But I think even more than just the nuggets is the context that you placed them in. It's made it far more meaningful to me, and I know to anyone. My wife was watching. And she's watching, and she sent me a text. She said, "That guy's smart." But so I just want to before we end, I just want to just wrap up and tie some of these loose ends together. But if you're watching this, like, share, comment on this video. Let us know that you appreciate this information. Let us know that you want to see more of this, because this is just this. You know that this is the tip of the iceberg. You know that this is the tip of the iceberg. He says, so let's look at some things that Aaron has given us, some of the nuggets. Write a book that shows expertise. Get a mentor, right? Enter into the conversation that's going on in your prospect's head. You have to be able to get into their heads. And how do you do that? By speaking their language, right? And he can go into even more detail. Okay, well, how do you speak their language? How do you learn what their language is? That's more, those are more areas to unpack. And finally, he said that you must resonate emotionally, right? And when you think about ministers and preachers, that's what they're brilliant at, right? And so this is an aspect of marketing that preachers have mastered, the ability to tell that story in a way that pierces your heart.
That's
right? That makes you grab that pew, right, until your knuckles turn white and feel something pulling you down to that altar, right? And make you feel like everyone's looking at you. And if you don't go down there, you're feeling that pressure. So Aaron, I just want to say thank you for coming on today. Thank you. You're actually the first interview that I've done on my channel, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. You've been brilliant, gave us wonderful advice. And do you have any last words before we end today?
You need a higher quality interview. But sincerely, thanks. I appreciate the time, Sean. Of course, I follow you and stalk you on Facebook all the time. And so I appreciate the talk. It was fun.
Yeah. So the connection between faith and marketing is huge for my Christian brothers and sisters, for my business enthusiasts and entrepreneur aspirers, and like the connection between faith and marketing is really huge. And if you can master one, it can impact the other. That's the value of it. Like if you get good at one, it'll impact you on the other, sure. Right? It's the same skill set. You are trying to capture someone's attention. And the challenge is there is so much competing in the world for a person's attention. From 3 to 10,000 advertisements a day. This has had the effect of making many people shut down intellectuals. Many people don't like to read because to them it's information. As a teacher, I've really seen this heavily in students. Right, a student would have a laptop open. You're not even asking them to look up in a dictionary, which would help the skill. But they don't even want to type it into the search engine. Can you just tell me what this means? No. I mean, I could, but I'm not. I'm not going to tell you what it means. Look it up, right? Focus. And that's where we're trying to get them to do. And this has been a great first interview, and I really appreciate Aaron for coming on. Thank you for tuning in to our episode today, The Thought Decoder, where we teach you how to think better. Be sure to follow us. We want to empower Christians to state their faith articulately and defend it, as well as state their fate and defend it. I said both of them. That's what we want you guys to do. And we do that by producing videos, interviews like this one, and teaching logic and critical thinking. Thank you so much. Until next time, think better.